Judge Benjamin's personal journey is one of resilience and determination. Raised by a single mother, they moved from Trinidad to Florida, then to New York, where she completed her elementary school and attended high school in the Bronx. And on this episode, I'm shining light on Judge Avion M. Benjamin. Hello, folks. Welcome to Season 9's Trini Corner series, brought to you by the Consul General of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. J. Andre Laveau. I'm Ozzy Stewart. Welcome back. I'm very grateful that you've tuned in to this thank you tour of mine, giving flowers to deserving impactors within the Trinidadian diaspora. Now, please like, follow, share, subscribe, drop a comment, support us via our stores merch or our donate page new, or become a member on our new members page to our after show called Inside the Call. So it'll be a minute because there's a lot to this woman. Judge Avion M. Benjamin is a trailblazing judge serving on the New Jersey Vicinage, is that correct? Vicinage 5 Superior Court, earning her bachelor's degree from Binghamton University and her JD from the George Washington University Law School, which is one of the oldest and best law schools in Washington, D.C., ranked as the 23rd best law school in the country by U.S. News and World Report in 2020. And by the way, JD stands for Juris Doctor degree, which is a professional degree required to practice law. In terms of law, she took and passed both bar exams, New York and New Jersey, Davison, Eastman, and Munoz from 2002 to 2004 before joining the city of Newark's law department as Assistant Corporation Counsel. Over the years, she rose through the ranks, becoming Assistant Section Chief in the Civil Litigation Section in 2006, and then serving as Section Chief from 2009 to 2015, followed by First Assistant Corporation Counsel from 2015 to 2020, when she was appointed to the Superior Court by New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, and a position which extends until 2027, with the possibility of reappointment that could see her serving until the mandatory retirement age of 70, guys. Long term. Then, Judge Benjamin presided over non-dissolution matters, including paternity testing, child support, child custody, visitation, and emergency appeals. She approaches her duties with compassion and professionalism, earning the respect of her peers and the community she serves. Lastly, Judge Benjamin's personal journey is one of resilience and determination. Raised by a single mother, they moved from Trinidad to Florida, then to New York, where she completed her elementary school and attended high school in the Bronx. Her appointment is a unique milestone for West Indian representation and diversity in the judicial system. As a Black, Catholic, Caribbean American woman immigrant, she embodies the values of inclusivity and equality. Her presence in positions of power is a testament to the importance of seeing more women of color in leadership roles in a society where representation and conversations on race, gender, and equality are now at the forefront. Driven, ambitious, knowledgeable, and proudly Caribbean, Judge Avion Benjamin is a beacon of inspiration and the embodiment of the popular hashtag Caribbean Girl Magic. Notably, her court chambers proudly displays a small Trini flag in recognition and love of her Caribbean heritage and country. So you took the New York and New Jersey bar exam. Was that together, or which was first, and what was the journey from then to your present position?
Okay. First of all, Ozzy, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the show. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you.
So New York and New Jersey were two separate bars, and I took them over a course of 3 days. One part of the test goes to both states. It's a multiple choice type test. So whatever you score will go to New York and New Jersey, but each state had their own specific questions about the law. So it was 3 days. Day 1, I took the New York part. Day 2, I took the multi-state or multiple choice part of it. And then day 3 was New Jersey's.
Wow.
It was a lot.
Wow.
But I'm happy to say I passed.
Right. How does it feel to be a judge in the Superior Court after having argued a case at the state Supreme Court back in 2020?
Arguing that case was the highlight of my legal career. Mm-hmm. And it was in the middle of the pandemic.
Right.
So I had to do it virtually in my house on the computer. But it was the highlight because not too many attorneys get to argue in the Supreme Court in whatever state they work in.
Right.
And I did that in April, and fast forward November of that year, I became a judge.
And the crazy part of it, if you did that in April, the pandemic thing, even though people knew it like the fall before, March, beginning of March was when it really hit.
Shut down.
Whoa. Have your responsibilities changed from 2020, like those that I've read, to now?
It has, because when I started, I was assigned to the family division.
Right.
And I spent 2 years there handling the cases that you mentioned.
Right.
Now, since September of 22, I serve in the criminal division. So I'm one of the criminal judges where I hear cases from robbery, sexual assault, up to homicides.
So now that you're sitting there for a little while, would you prefer being in the family criminal division?
So I tell people, because I love both divisions so far, family was definitely more stressful with the types of cases that I handled because you wonder if you're making the right decisions and you sometimes take that work home. Whereas in the criminal division, it's a jury that decides if someone is guilty or not. Versus in family, I was the one that had to make all the decisions. So it's definitely not as much stress when it comes to making the decisions, because if a jury finds you guilty, my job will be then to sentence you in accordance with the law.
Right.
But I like both divisions for different reasons.
What led you to pursue a career in law?
I love to argue.
Okay.
I love to talk and I love to argue.
Right.
And it was in high school that I really developed a passion for the law and presenting in front of people, that I felt going this legal route was the best for me.
Right.
In terms of trying to convince people to believe what I'm saying.
What advice would you give to aspiring lawyers, particularly women of color, who are interested in pursuing a law in the judicial system?
I think the first thing that I would say to you is follow your passion. And what I mean by that, while in college, whatever you love, major in that. One of the misconceptions, I think, is that in order to pursue law, you have to major in political science or criminal justice, things of that nature. You can major in dance and go to law school, because law school just prepares you to take the bar and pass, hopefully, but it's once you get whatever job in the legal field that actually makes you a lawyer. So if I could, like, I majored in political science when I was in school because I felt like that's what I needed to do in order to go to law school. But if I can go back and do it again, I probably would have picked something else.
Which would be?
Maybe along the education line, because between my choices and growing up was I either wanted to be a teacher or a lawyer. I think I got to do both being a lawyer.
Ah, okay. How do you ensure fairness and impartiality in your courtroom when it comes to making decisions about visitation rights and child custody? Or how did you when you were doing?
So when I was in family, I really treated every case as its own, which is what we're supposed to do as judges. And I listened to both sides. I think one of the things that I found in family with the cases that I handled, they weren't represented by attorneys. It was mostly mothers and fathers just trying to work things out. And I gave each side an opportunity to present their case. And it really just came down to the evidence that was presented before me and me applying the law appropriately in deciding how much child support has to be paid. The standard in family custody cases is what is in the best interest of the child.
Right.
And that's how I governed all my decisions.
I suddenly started thinking of Judge Judy and all these guys, and like, would that have been something that you would have done?
Absolutely not.
Not. And why? And why? And why?
Because it's entertainment.
It's not
right. It's not reality.
They don't, so therefore they don't judge.
They're not judging by the standards that a judge like myself judge by in terms of applying the law, evidence rules. Like evidence rules are not carried out in any of those shows. You know, when you watch those shows, you know, people start telling you what other people said and how they got. There are rules that we have to follow. That stuff like that is not allowed. And don't get me wrong, I've watched the judge shows, but never had an interest in doing any of them.
What role do you believe diversity or inclusion plays in the judicial system, and how do you personally contribute to promoting these values?
I think diversity in the judicial system is so important. And the reason for that is going to court can be a very nerve-wracking experience for someone that has never interacted with the judicial system before. Even on the lowest level, like you get a parking ticket and you have to go to court, you know, you're nervous. But I think if you walk into the courtroom and you see someone, whether it's the prosecutor or the public defender or the judge, that looks like you, you can take a deep breath and think, okay, it may not be so bad.
Right.
I think diversity is important in the judicial system because when you come from diverse backgrounds, you bring that common sense knowledge that you have to your job. And I'll give you an example. While I was in family, a mother and father were debating about how much time he needs to take the child to the barbershop, right? And I remember talking to another judge colleague and saying, you know, I gave him 4 hours for taking his son to the barbershop. And my colleague was like, 4 hours? That's crazy. Why would you do that?
Right.
And my colleague doesn't look like me.
Right.
And I had to explain to my colleague, us going to the barbershop is more than just getting a haircut.
Right.
It's time where this dad can really bond with his son, the other men that are in the shop. So it's not an in and out type of thing. And with me sharing that with him, it gave him something to think about the next time a similar case was before him, that in our community, a barbershop is not a 1 hour visit. It could be 4 and 5 hours. So I think it's things like that that can help change the judicial system if people understand we come from different backgrounds and the way I do something is different from yours, but at least give me the benefit of the doubt.
As a woman of color, do you feel any added pressure or responsibility in your role as a judge?
I feel it, but I don't think about it.
Okay.
And the reason why is I'm so humbled to be in the position that I'm in. And every time I step out on the bench, I just want to represent being a Black woman, being a Black woman from Trinidad, that anytime anyone leaves my courtroom, they will say, I know I had a fair trial, or she heard everything that I had to say, and that they take that with them. But the pressures of being a Black woman on the bench and knowing that everything I do is probably scrutinized more than some of my colleagues, I try not to think about it because I think it will get in the way of my purpose and what I need to do.
Yes. What role do you feel empathy plays in the judicial process? And I think you've touched on it. And how do you balance the need? How do you balance it with the need to uphold the law?
It's hard, right? Especially, and even in criminal, I see it. I have parents that are in my courtroom on the day that their son or daughter is getting sentenced. And as a mother, I can empathize with them.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's a matter of taking responsibility for the actions that their child took and recognizing that although I empathize with you, I still have a job to do. And my job is to sentence your son or daughter in accordance with the law.
Right.
But it's hard.
Yeah.
And we're human. I think that's something that sometimes people miss as judges.
Yes.
That we're human.
Right.
We have feelings.
Right.
There are times that I can feel myself getting emotional on the bench.
Right. And then you have to do that inner talk.
And I just talk to myself, but at the same time, sometimes your emotions can't get the best of you.
Right.
And I know as a woman, us crying, right?
Yeah.
Is a sign of weakness.
Correct.
I totally disagree with that.
Correct.
I think it's a sign of being human.
Correct.
And that I'm okay showing you that I have emotions.
Right.
But I can still do my job.
Right. Right. Don't twist the tears with what I have to do.
Exactly.
Right. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges currently facing the judicial system, and how do you think they can be addressed?
I think, for the most part, going back to diversity, getting more diverse people on the bench to help balance out the different divisions, as well as just staff. You know, I find since COVID, a lot of people don't want to work anymore, right? So whether they took packages or have retired or just moved on, staffing issues, I think overall is a problem in the judicial system. How to fix it, I'm not too sure, because I understand that they work with a budget and, you know, sometimes it does come down to dollars that people aren't willing to work as much as before for a particular salary. Yeah. But it does put a strain on what we have to do, because then you find yourself doing more administrative stuff as well, along with your everyday work.
Do you find that administrative stuff lends itself to delays in listening or seeing or, you know, other cases?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
I just think it gives us more work to do.
Right.
But we get it done.
Okay. How do you manage the emotional toll that comes with presiding over difficult and sometimes heartbreaking cases? And I know you touched on it a little bit, but
since I've become a judge, I meditate a lot. So I've made that a practice. So before I go out on the bench, either 5 or 10 minutes, I actually do a meditation. I belong to Peloton, and you know, through the Peloton app, they have some wonderful meditation classes. So I'll just meditate and just take those breaths and know one day at a time, one case at a time, and just do your best. And I try, once I step off the bench, whatever decision I made, it has to stay there.
There you go. Again, my dear audience, this episode is brought to you again by Mr. J. Andre Laveau, Consul General of Trinidad and Tobago, New York City. Again, please check out our donate page on our website. Like, follow, share, drop a comment on our YT page, which is at On The Call Podcast 20. Back to Judge Avion M. Benjamin. So, Judge, you became a judge in 2020, in the year of the pandemic. What was that time like for you? I mean, the courts, the family. I know many of my friends and my story. What was it like for you?
So I started in November of 2020, where everything was still shut down. And coming on as a new judge, I was doing everything virtually. Right. Because the courthouses were still closed to the public. So everything was virtual. And it was challenging because, again, I'm learning how to be a judge in 2020, but also dealing with people who've been locked up, you know, for so long that they're coming to court with an attitude.
Right. Right. Wow.
So now I have to navigate that. Yes. In explaining, I understand your case has been pending the last year and a half. You want an answer, you want a decision, but it's still court. there's still a way you have to behave in court, even though you're home in your living room.
That's right. That's right.
You know, so just navigating those things was difficult. But we pushed through. And I think we were able to still allow people to feel seen and that their cases were heard and addressed. But I know from me starting and just hearing from other judges who knew what it was like before the pandemic, it was different. It was just really different. I think people's level of patience and tolerance just wasn't there. And as a judge, you have to continue to exercise that, even though for yourself, because you're going through the pandemic too.
Exactly.
But you still have to exercise that level of patience and tolerance for those coming before you. So it was hard, but I think it helped make me a better judge because of the things that I had to learn during that time in terms of navigating people and still running a courtroom smoothly. Where once courthouses opened and people were coming inside, I was ready to go.
that was like you went to school around that time. When you do get tenure, what exactly does that mean for you?
So when you're first appointed and confirmed, your first term is 7 years. So I will be up for reappointment in 2027. And
that's right
like
around
you
the
said,
corner.
it is around the corner because November makes 4 years and it seems like yesterday. So once you get tenure, you're on a bench until 70 if that is what you choose. So it essentially, I consider this 7 years, you know, your test run.
Correct.
To see if you're in it for the long haul and want to do it. And when I get tenure, like you said, because I'm already claiming it, it will happen. Then I'll see. I don't see myself being on the bench until 70 though.
What would you, we'll save that for another question, for another time. Hang on. I heard that you journal. What's the significance of the number 44 to you?
So I journal. And
is that every day?
I try to do it every day, but some days if I miss it, then I'll just play catch up. But I journaled about becoming a judge. And I had an entry that, you know, because I like claiming things, that I would get on the bench by a certain age. And I was able to go back and read my journal and that entry, and it happened.
Who were your mentors? Your top two?
My mother. And there was a judge who's still a judge that kind of took me under his wings. He was a judge that I tried my first case before and my last case before I became a judge. And he was the type of judge that I said if it happened, I would want to be patient, funny, you know, being in the courtroom, not as serious as some people think, but always prepared, read everything, knew the job, and can teach while being a judge. In the sense, like I said, I tried my first case before him, and you know, you're nervous trying your first case. Should I object? Should I not object? And as a judge, you can't tell the attorneys what to do. But there's subtle ways that you can, you know, where it might be a certain lean of the head or a look. You might want to object now without saying it. And he mentored me. And even when I became a judge, he still mentored me because he was in the family division when I joined, and just a really good person. And obviously the first person I said is my mother.
What is the joy of your job?
Wow. You know, it's funny because people call me judge.
Yes.
And I still don't believe it. And knowing how I got here, the joy is putting on that robe every day and just doing my best. And having people, and Lord, I didn't think I was going to cry on your show. But having people appreciate what I'm doing and telling me that is the joy that I take away every day.
And that's the joy that I get from what I'm Thank you so much for being on it. We ain't finished yet. Thank you so- What is the most memorable moment so far in your career?
Wow. I had a case that the young man took a plea and he was going to be sentenced, I think maybe for about 6 or 7 years. And when he took the plea, I had to schedule a sentencing date a few weeks past that. And his attorney asked for me to release him pending his sentence date because his wife was about to deliver their first child. And if I would consider releasing him so he could be there for the birth of his first child. And I did. And I remember the look on his face and his wife's face, because she was in the audience, and the look on everybody in my courtroom's face that I did that. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I realized, again, going back to what we discussed earlier, diversity makes a difference. Because the young man looked like me. And I'm sure if he was before another judge, they probably wouldn't have released him. And when he walked away, he shook his head and he was like, "Thank you, judge." And then he came back to get sentenced. Didn't get into any trouble during that time, walked into my courtroom and just thanked me for allowing him to see the birth of his first child before he went away.
I wonder what he's doing now, or what his mental faculty, how that is working now.
Right.
What is the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
The most important lesson I've learned over my career is it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
I hear my dad. Yeah.
Right? That, in our profession, and I'm not speaking about judges, just lawyers in general, we feel that to get our point across, we need to be loud. We need to be the loudest one in the courtroom or angry. You can zealously advocate for your client and speak at this tone and still get your point across versus putting on a scene, as we would say home. And it's all about how you say things and your delivery because people are watching.
And sometimes when you speak softer, people lean in more. Okay, so what contribution or achievement would you like to have accomplished in the end, whenever the end is?
Wow. Honestly, I just want that when the end does come, for anybody, a lawyer, a litigant, just someone sitting in my courtroom, fellow judges, to say she was fair.
Okay, now at this point in your life, what more would you like to achieve?
I leave that to the man upstairs.
This is Judge Avion M. Benjamin, with whom I am so pleased to speak with. But for those who check in on the members only page, we have more to come. So with that, I'm going to exit and say thank you very, very much for sharing, being open as you have been, and also for being here to kick off our Inside the Call. And my audience, thanks for spending your time with us today. Please visit our members, our donate, and our store pages on our website. Grateful, 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 grateful.
Thank you.
Thanks to Cheese, to our OTC team. Please send us your thoughts and comments via our YouTube or IG pages. Care to share. And remember, when you're on your beat, stay on the sunny, sunny side of the street. safely. Be health conscious and kind to one another. And don't forget to give thanks for the little and big gifts as we strive to live that beautiful life. Care, share, subscribe, like, drop a comment, support. Stars, merch, donate page, members only page. Become a member. We need the support. Thank you.